So, good day everyone. So, this is the continuation of our reporting activities. So, of course, we are the group 11 and we will be discussing the chapter 11 entitled File System Interface. But before that, let me introduce myself first. My name is Daniel Tolentino and let's start. So, what are the contents? Kung ano nga ba yung i-discuss namin ngayon. So, of course, we'll be discussing the file concept, access methods, directory structure, file system mounting, file sharing, and protection. So, file concept. So a file is a named collection of related information that is recorded on secondary storage. So data cannot be written to secondary storage unless they are within a file. So meaning to say that a file is a name of collection or related information that is recorded on secondary storage, such as magnetic disk, magnetic tapes, and optical disk. So in general, a file is a sequence of bits, bytes, lines, or records whose meaning is defined by the file's creator and the user. So in a simple manner, it is only the concept of a file if it's a video file. Like for example, if it's a video file, how many or what's the size of its video. So that's actually the concept or the file concept. So of course, if we have a file concept, we have a file structure. So a file has a certain defined structure which depends on its type. So we have different types of file. So if the file is a text file, of course it's a sequence of characters organized into lines. If its source file is a sequence of subroutines and function. And if it's an object file, it's a sequence of bytes organized into blocks understandable by the system's linkers. And last, if it's executable file, it is a series of code section that the loader can bring into memory and execute. So if we have the file structure, of course, the file attribute. So this is the typical or the common attributes of a file. So we have the name, identifier, type, location, size, protection, time, date, and user identification. Of course, for the name, it depends on the user. So, nakadepende sa atin kung ano nga ba yung papanga natin sa file name natin, kung ano yung ilalagay natin file, it depends on us, it depends on the user. And for the identifier, unique tag identifies file within file system. And for the type, like what I've said, that we have different types of file, then definitely needed for systems that support different types different types location different types. So for the location, it's a pointer to file location on device. So the location simply kung saan natin ilolocate or saan ba natin ilalagay yung file na gusto natin i-save. And for the size, it's simply the current file size. So it's simply the size of a file. How many GB, KB, and etc. And for the protection, controls who can do reading, writing, and executing. And for the time, date, and user identification, data for protection, security, and usage, monitoring information about files are kept into directory structure which is maintained on disk. And for the file operation, this is the typical command or operation that we are using. So we have the create for write, read for a position within a file, and delete for truncate. And if you are going to open the specific file, or once we open the specific file na na-save na natin, for the open, of course, this you are requesting for a function. So this function is the f sub I, which search the directory structure on disk for entry f sub I and move the content of entry to memory. On the other side, of course, pares lang naman siya if you are going to close the file. Kung nag-open tayo ng file, of course, we are going to close it. Then if we're going to close it, we are actually requesting for a for a function which is the close and f sub I. So this is move the content to entry f sub I in memory to directory structure on disk. So open files. So it says here that several pieces of data are needed to manage open files. File pointer. So what is file pointer? Pointer to last read-write location per process that has the file open. So file open count. The counter tracks the number of opens and closes. The read reaches 0 on the last close, the system can then remove the entry. So file open count simply kung how many mo siyang na-open, kung ilan mo siya, kung paano mo siya na-open. So basically, like for example, in file open count, if you're going to open one file sa dalawang application, like for example, one file, if you're going to open it to Adobe, and that same file na gusto mong i-open din sa browser, like for example, so yung parehas na file na yun, you are able to access it. That's the file open count. Parehas mo silang mo open. However, if you're going to change it or if you're going to edit some of it, then hindi mo siya pwedeng gawin. Magagawa mo lang siya as once na i-close mo yung isang file na naka-open sa kabilang application. So, magagawa mo nga lang yun, may edit mo lang siya if i-open mo siya. So, for the dislocation of the file, like what I've said a while back, we need to locate the file and the info needed to locate the file on disk. So the access rights per process access mode information. So operating system can allow or deny subsequent IO requests. So the file types or the name extension. So as we can see that we have different type of files. So we have the executable, object, source code, batch, text, word processor, library, print or view, archive, multimedia. So itong name extension na to is nakadepende dun sa may file types natin. If the type of our file is executable, then the usual extension of our for that file would be exe or that .exe. So its function is to ready to run machine language program. So ito yung nakikita natin sa dulo ng file kapag isinisave na natin siya sa desktop natin or kung saan natin siyang gusto i-locate. And for the object, of course object, its function, or so the usual extension for the file type object would be .obj. So for its function, compiled machine language, not link. And of course, we are actually familiar with this kasi parang naman siyang ginagamit for text, for the documents. So para mas madali natin siyang maintindihan, para mas madali natin siyang mas madali ko lang siyang may explain. So this is the file types, the name extension for each file types ay o kung ano yung extension ng file types, nakadepende talaga doon kung ano yung type ng file na ginagawa natin. Of course, for documents, for text, ang extension name would be .docs and so on and so forth. And for the access methods, so this is of course, the typical command that we are actually also that we are using. So for the sequential access, the read next, write next, reset, no read after last write, or the rewrite. And for the direct access would be read n, write n, position to n, read n, write next, and rewrite n. So n is equal to relative block number. So this sequential access file. So information in the file is processed in order one after the other. So if you are in the current position, you are able to rewind it and read or write. And this is the simulation of sequential access on direct access file. So this is the sequential for the sequential access reset, its direct access would be CP is equal to 0. And for the sequential access for read next, its direct access would be read CP, CP is equal to CP plus 1. And for the sequential access for write next, its direct access would be write CP, CP is equal to CP plus 1. So as we notice that kailangan mo lang mag-add ng 1 value. So the CP is equals to current position. So this is the example of index and relative files. So the index contains pointers to the various blocks to find a record in the file. We first search the index and then use the pointer to access the file directly and to find the desired record. So a relative file is a file in which record is identified by its ordinal position in the files. Like for example, record 1, record 2, record 3, so on. And this means that records can be accessed randomly as well as sequentially. For sequential access, simply simply execute a read or write statement to access the next record in the file. So the index is the in order kasi siya. So if you want to locate or if you want to see the file named Smith dito sa may index, we're able to see it ng Smith lang. While dito sa may relative file kasi, lalabas lahat ng may Smith din. So for more information about um about the system interface, Kate will continue the discussion. Thank you for watching.
This structure. This can be subdivided into partitions. These or partitions can be redundant arrays of independent disks, word protected against failure. This or partition can be used raw without a file system or formatted with a file system. Partitions, also known as a mini-disk, slices entity containing file system known as a volume. Each volume containing file system also tracks that file system info in device directory or volume table of contents. The actual physical details of a modern disk may be quite complicated. Simply, there are one or more surfaces, each of which contains several tracks, which is divided into sectors. So, a typical file system organization. Each volume that contains a file system must also contain information about the files in the system. This information is kept in entries in a device directory, which records name, location, size, and type. So, mapapansin natin dito, ang hawak ni this one is si partition A at saka partition B. And ang hawak naman dito ni this 2 at this 3 ay si partition C. There are 6 performed on directory: the search for a file, create a file, delete a file, list a directory, rename a file, and traverse the file system. Structure directory. The directory is structured in the form of a tree. It also has a root directory, and every file in the system has a unique path. A directory within a tree-structured directory may contain files or subdirectories. Special system calls are used to create or rename direction. Tree-structured directories. Efficient searching, grouping capability, current directory, and working directory. Directories. Creating a new file is done in current directory. Deleting a file, creating a new subdirectory is done in current directory. For example, if in current directory. Deleting mail, deleting the entire subtree related by mail. Option 1, do not delete a directory unless it is empty, such as MS-DOS. Option 2, delete all files in the directory such as unique rm command with R option. Acyclic graph directories have shared subdirectories and files. Only one file exists. Any changes made by one person are immediately visible too. So this is the acyclic directories are a generalization of the tree directory structure. Acyclic allows files to have multiple parent directories. This means that multiple users can access the same file from a different path. A cyclic graph directories count new directory entry type, the link another name pointer to an existing file, and resolve the link follow pointer to locate the file. File system mounting. A file system mounting be mounted before it can be accessed. An unmounted file system mounted at a mount point, the location within the file structure where the file system is to be attached, an empty directory. So this is the mount point and this is the new file. So figures A shows an existing file system while figure B shows an unmounted volume residing on device, and this at this point only the file on the existing file system can be accessed. So this is the mounted file system.
So hello, my name is Eduardo D. Ubaldo Jr., the next presenter. So, file sharing. Sharing of files on multiple user system is desirable. Sharing may be done through a protection schemes, and on distributed system, files may be shared across a network. And last, network file system, the NFS, is commonly distributed file sharing method. So file sharing is a public or a private sharing files of folders on a computer connected to a network. So files can be easily be shared outside a network via removable media. But the term file sharing almost always refer to a sharing files on a network. So file sharing allows several people to use on the same file data. So for example, uh, file sharing services are Dropbox, the Box, and also and the well-known Google Drive, the OneDrive, and iCloud, the Mediafire, Microsoft OneDrive, OpenText, and Hightail. So file sharing of multiple user. So user ID identify users, allowing to permission and protections to be per user. It's look like Google Drive. Uh, he shared the link of the link of her media, and that's a user ID because it's private. And the group IDs allows user to be in groups, permitting a group to access, right? And like in also in Google Drive, he also shared with anyone, so anyone can be access to that drive. So file sharing remote file system. Uses networking to allow file system access between systems, so manually via programs like FTP, the file transfer protocol, automatically simply using distributed file system, semi-automatically via the World Wide Web. And the client-server models allows to client to mount remote file system from servers. So servers can be served multiple clients, and client and user on client identification is insecure or complicated. The NFS is standard Unix client-server file sharing protocol. The CFSI FS is standard Windows protocol. And standard operating system files calls are translated into remote calls. So the distributed information system, such as the LDAP, DNS, NIS, and Active Directory, implement unified access to information needed for remote computing. So the remote file system, it enables the application that runs on a client computer to access file stored on a different computer. So remote file system also often make other resources. It's look like, for example, the remote printers. It can be accessible from a client computer. So the protection. The file owner, the creator, should be able to control. Should be able to control his file sharing. It's like he can manage to who can be access to that media, what can be done, and by whom. It's like that. So type of access: the read, write, and execute, append, delete, and list. These are the type of access. So access control. So the most common approach to the person protection problem is to make access dependent on identified user. Different user may be different types of access of file or directory. So let's skip to that part. So access control is an essential element of security that determines who is allowed to access in a certain data, application, and resources, and in what circumstances. In the same, what that keys are pre-approved guest lists protect physical spaces, access control policies protect digital spaces. So the access control list, to condense the length of the access control list, many systems recognize. These are the three classification of user of connection with the fee file. So first, the owner. The user must be who created the fee file is the owner. And the group, a set of users who are sharing the fee file and needed similar access is a group or work group. And at last, the universe. All other users in the system constitute the universe. The next, permission in a Unix. So in the Unix, directory protection, fee file protection are handled similarly. Association with the subdirectory are three fee files owner, the owner, group, and the universe. Each these three, thus the user can list the content of subdirectory only if are with set in the appropriate fee field. Similar user can be changed his current directory into another current. These are the sample of directory listing from a Unix environment. And this Windows 7 access control list management. As you can see to the picture, these are the example. So Windows user typically manage access control list via the GUI, and this figure shown are the fee file permission windows on a Windows 7 and TFS fee file system. In this example, user, the guest is specifically denied the access to the fee file list panel, not Java.